The bad news is we can't move it backward. We can't move it backward to when we were meeting, dating, falling in love, all the sexual tension, all the excitement. It was so freaking easy to feel desire. And we can't move it back there with a long-term person, but we can move it forward and recreate something similar.
You're a man living in the modern world in a time when men and manhood are not what they once were. You live life on your own terms. You're self-sufficient. You think for yourself, and you march to the beat of your own drum. When life knocks you down, you get back up, because in your gut, you know that's what men do. You're a badass and a warrior, and on the days when you forget, we are here to remind you who you really are.
Welcome to the Sovereign Man Podcast, where we aim to make men masculine again. I'm your man, Nikki Ballou, and we have a very special guest for you today. Today's guest is a dear friend and a true expert in the field of sexual dynamics. Dr. Cheryl Fraser. Welcome, Cheryl.
Great to be here, Nikki. So excited to help share with some of the guys how and why our sexual spark tends to lessen, if not die, in long-term relationships, and what that might mean from a female point of view as well as from the male point of view, and what you can do to reinvest in moving your sexual relationship forward. Because the bad news is we can't move it backward. We can't move it backward to when we were meeting, dating, falling in love, all the sexual tension, all the excitement. It was so freaking easy to feel desire. And we can't move it back there with a long-term person, but we can move it forward and recreate something similar.
Well, let's just jump right into it, Cheryl. So maybe you can start by telling a bit of your own story, and then let's just jump right into the topic.
Yeah, sure. So my first sex toy was my Snoopy electric toothbrush. So here I was. I don't know what age I would have been, maybe 11 or 12, not a word of a lie. I could not make this up. And I, started to explore my own body a little bit of touch, felt pretty great. And I figured out more or less how to have orgasmic type feelings with my fingers. And then I got creative, and my Snoopy electric toothbrush was the best freaking vibrator toy. They say a dog is a man's best friend. I beg to differ. I'd say it's a girl's best friend. And I put that out there, because it's kind of a cute and a funny story, but also to put forward that I always had a healthy interest in sexuality. I'm blessed to not have a sexual trauma history or anything that kind of got in the way of the natural development of a desire for pleasure that should be what happens in a female or male body. As we're kids, as we grow, as our genitals, as our physiology starts to shift towards more prepubescent and puberty, pleasure seeking is very normal.
It is.
Unless we get shamed, which generally happens, right? Grandma walks in the room while you're watching cartoons and you've got your hand maybe down your pants. You're not masturbating per se, maybe too young to have a full erection and an ejaculation anyway, but it feels kind of nice to stroke down there, and grandma or grandpa walks in and say, "Don't do that, it's dirty," or whatever messaging we got. We get it from culture, we might get it from our religion, we might get it from our teachers. We might get it from well-meaning parents, but they usually don't give us very helpful messages. So we're not going to go way down that rabbit hole, but just a context for pleasure is our birthright, is how I like to say it.
I like that.
Physical, sensual pleasure is our birthright, whether that's rolling an exquisite single malt around your mouth and really tasting it, whether it's enjoying a beautiful sunset or a beautiful piece of art, whether it's enjoying a massage, and whether it's enjoying the sexual, sensual, erotic aspects of our body response. It's our birthright, in that if society and confusion didn't get in the way, we'd enjoy pleasure. So I started off the top here talking about how it is difficult to maintain that in long-term love. And you asked about my story, so I started with Snoopy. And so fast forward, I chose through my life, I was a pretty aware girl and young lady, and I chose to share myself sexually with men I cared about or loved. So I tended to be a serial monogamist. Relationships would last 2, 3, 4 years. And I had a joyful, amazing sexuality. I have one of the few losing your virginity stories of a female person that is really, really positive. And it's because I knew my own body. I knew how to masturbate. I knew how to climax. I knew what pleasure was for me. And my first major boyfriend, I was 16, he was 21. He had a bit of sexual experience. I did not with another person. But he was so respectful and so great that he waited till I was ready. I went on the pill before we had intercourse. But before that, Nikki, for several months, he was giving me orgasms and not asking for his own. We would make out, his hand would go down my pants, and then eventually oral sex was fantastic. I was very comfortable with receiving pleasure because that was something I had done. I was not uncomfortable with penises, but that was a big deal for me. And I was taking it seriously. Plus, I was smart, so I wanted pregnancy control, which we did. So our first sexual encounter, of course I had an orgasm. He already knew how to give them to me. It was amazing. And it wasn't unpleasant and it wasn't yucky. It was great. And then we kind of effed like bunnies. I've been blessed with a strong, healthy sexual drive pretty much my entire life until menopause, until I turned 53, until this easy turn on. Generally, I wanted to make love more often than my male partners, not to a high level, but if it had been a week or two, I'd be like, hey, it's been a while. And I would often be the one making the overture to move into sexuality.
Bless your heart. I just want to say, as a man, I really just want to just say bravo. Bravo.
Bravo.
Thank you, Cheryl. More women should be like that.
And a lot more are. I work with so many couples, mainly heterosexual couples, although I'm LGBTQ plus trans, everybody are my people. But I mainly in my work, I have a 12-week online immersion couples program, and mainly it's 90+% heterosexual couples. And about 40% of these couples, generally in long-term relationships, choose my work. Generally, they're in their 50s and 60s, some in their 40s, some even in their 70s. I would say 30 to 40% of the heterosexual couples in my programs, it is the woman wanting more sex than the men. So I need to bust the old tropes of how men always want sex and women don't. That may be your experience in your own relationship. Anyone listening, I'm not going to deny that in any way. But just yesterday, Nikki, I sat with a couple, did an online session with them. They're in my ongoing program. And they're about late 40s, healthy, athletic, attractive, got 3 kids in their teens, and they really get along great. They're a great team. They're firmly in what I call marriage incorporated or relationship incorporated. And what I mean by that is they're running the business of them and the kids and the family really well. From the green drinks to the mortgage getting paid to the kids going to their activities and someone's there on time to pick them up. And they really like and love each other. They haven't made love in almost 2 years.
Whoa.
And yep. And about 30% or higher of couples in a longer term relationship, and for some of us, that's only 3-4 years. It doesn't mean decades, are not making love at all. Or they're in what is called a clinically sexless or low sex relationship, which means you make love 6 or fewer times a year. Do the math, every couple months.
Hey.
This surprises people. I was interviewed, I think, year before last, Nikki, in both the New York Times and Boston Globe for an article a reporter was doing, and both of them were stunned when I said it's around 30%, because it's not reflected in the literature. We don't need to go down a literature research rabbit hole, but briefly, the research is out there, asks a random sample of 100 or 1,000 or 2,000 people from 18 to 80, how often do you make love? And then the statistic gets picked up by the media. There's like, the average person makes love 1.5 times a week. I'm like, no, they don't. No, they don't. Not across the board. So let me repeat, because people are probably still scratching their head and disbelieving me. Up to 30 or 40% of couples in a longer term relationship are rarely making love at all.
No, I know that to be true. Like, I know men in our communities who have said that they have not made love in a decade and plus.
Yeah. And I'm so glad they're talking about it in your group, in the Sovereign Men's group, where the courage to talk about these things is welcome, because they're not talking about it anywhere else. So each guy feels like he's broken or he's got this sort of shameful secret and there's something wrong with him and everybody else has a better sex life. And then the braggarts get in there with the blah, 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 which really makes the regular normal men think like there's something wrong with this. So the first thing I wanted to do today, we've done, which is bring some of these things out of the closet, out of the darkness, that there's a lot less sex going on in longer term love than we think. And let me be clear, including in couples like the one I worked with yesterday, who are really happy with their relationship overall. They love each other. They communicate well. They're each other's biggest supporters in your life goals and your hobbies and whatnot. It's not like they're fighting all the time, some of these couples. It's not like they're miserable. It's not like there's overt reasons why the bedroom is filled with cobwebs. That should wake people up that are listening. That should freak them out a little bit, is you can love your person and they can love you, and you can have an overall pretty damn good relationship and still have trouble in the bedroom. Why? There's a lot of reasons, but one of them is novelty's exciting and familiarity isn't. We know that. That's where affairs, where porn, where erotica, where fantasy, where massages with a happy ending, so to speak. Not very happy for the relationship often, because these tend to get found out. A lot of couples in my program going through that. So
you're talking about infidelity, something like
infidelities in various ways, yeah, and including like excessive porn use, excessive erotica use. This can be female or male, where it's getting in the way, and we're seeking novelty, we're seeking urgency, we're seeking the taboo. I'm not opposed to taboo, because when taboo is brought into a consensual sexual relationship with someone we also love, if we can play in our taboo now and then, if we can have a rockin', dirty, naughty, frickin' fantasy, crazy BDSM, whatever variation or flavor now and then, we can begin to create some novelty within a sexual relationship that is A, probably become pretty infrequent, not for everybody, and B, even if you're making love a reasonable amount of time, and I'm not going to put a number on that because it's each couple, they know what's reasonable for each of them, I hope, or I'll help them find out. Even if you're making love, in a frequency that you're content with, ish. Mm-hmm. Is it what I call nipple, crotch, goodnight? Is it the routine? Now, there's nothing wrong with that routine. It's like the same meal you would eat on a Monday that you like. But if your sexual routine has been reduced due to laziness and time constraints and fatigue and all this real world, not very romantic stuff, to I touch you here, you touch me there, pretty much we got a map for how to make each other come, which is great. And then we're finished, and it was good. It was good. But it wasn't that spicy, tear your clothes off, excitement, rawr, rawr, where the taboo can come in on the occasional encounter, where the urgency can come in. That, to loop back to what I said, is really hard to create out of marriage incorporated, relationship incorporated. I don't care where people are married or not. But if you're choosing monogamy, if you're choosing a commitment of that style, however you labeled it, it's A-okay with me. But back to that can be boring and familiar, and to be wiping the nose of your grandchild and picking up the surly teenager and bringing them home and having yet another fight about cleaning up their room doesn't exactly lend itself, I want to suck you off right now, or baby, come here. So it really frustrates me, Nikki, how popular consciousness and everything from romantic comedies to porn and everything in between have left us with this residue of a belief that if our sexual desire, our sexual activity, our excitement for each other has declined, it might mean we're with the wrong person. Let me repeat that. We tend to feel or think, even if we don't consciously believe it all the time, that if we're not doing well, maybe we're not right for each other. Sometimes that's so. Maybe that's another episode, was when is the right time to split or separate or divorce. But trading person A for a new person is going to solve some of it for a while, because novelty is exciting, feeling adored, the psychological and physiological joy of the chase is a turn on for most of us. And that is hard to create with someone you've been with for 5 or 35 years. But when we trade it for someone else, whether that's in an illicit attempt with an affair, something you're trying to keep hidden, or in a choice to leave this relationship and try something new, or in a consensual non-monogamy discussion where the two people have said we have permission to pursue outside sexuality, that often blows up in the couple's face. Whatever way it is, new is fun. Just is. It's exciting. I'm going to feel more hot and horny if when I go to a conference next month, there's somebody who's got a brilliant brain and I find them exciting, I find them sexy, I find them handsome. I'm currently still hetero in my sexuality. And they think I'm all that, and it's grounded. It's not false flattery, because that bores me and I walk away. But it's grounded. We're vibing. There's a connection. Were I single, I'd want to pursue at least an all-night conversation with this person. That's more exciting than calling my sweetheart from the hotel room and saying, "How was your day?" "Oh, the cat threw up, but I took her to the vet and she's going to be okay." That
Mm.
stuff's important. I freaking love my cat and my dog and all of them. But it is not the same as the intrigue of the new. So part of why the sexual dynamism, the sexual attraction, the sexual desire, I can talk about the two types of desire in a moment, wanes is we're so busy in what it takes to run a life together. None of that's bad. But most couples aren't inherently skillful at chopping out time for romance, at chopping out time for seduction, at chopping out time to get away for a crazy weekend, just away from everything. The phone's off, the whoever's sitting the kids has the emergency number that isn't your own phone right now, so you can actually exhale together. You can actually connect in a new way. And I don't want to make that sound easy because that would be disingenuous. Simply placing ourselves in a nice hotel or cabin for a weekend isn't going to do it if we drag all our mental baggage there. But the moral of the story right now in this little piece of teaching and sharing is you got to make an effort. Instead of sitting around whining about it in your head or whining to your partner about it or complaining, you never want to jump my bones anymore. Well, nothing's less sexy than a guy who's complaining. I'll tell you that much to a woman.
I wanted to just jump into that because I want to know your thoughts on polarity. One of the other folks we had on our show talked about how one of the things that causes sexual attraction to wane is when polarity disappears. A
Mm,
powerful masculine and a powerful feminine usually have people like excited about jumping each other's bones. But
mhm.
this fellow was saying that the reason your wife doesn't want to jump your bones anymore is she doesn't find you sexy and attractive anymore. And the reason she doesn't find you sexy and attractive anymore is the guy that you used to be back then when you were chasing her and you wooed her and you won her. That's not who you're showing up as anymore. And
Right.
and he said this really clearly and powerfully, and it really struck home with me. He said, attraction can't be negotiated. Attraction either is there or it isn't, right?
Mm,
Um, and he said, but who you are, how you show up, can cause attraction or it can repel you,
right, right, right.
cause repellence. I guess maybe it'd
I
be
know.
another way to put it. And I'd love to understand your thoughts on this whole masculine, feminine dynamic and polarity situation.
Yeah, I mean, I have mixed reviews of that type of teaching. Some of it I think is very helpful. What I find is a lot of people, probably not your guest, they reduce everything to that without the complexities of real life relationship and all the multi layers between, in this case, a man and a woman. And so-called polarity isn't enough. However, I certainly agree that both female and male bodied people and any alternate bodies out there have masculine and feminine qualities available to them. And a healthy psyche and a healthy human being, which can bring a healthy two people together, is reasonably strong in a number of both masculine and feminine traits. Feminine traits being the ability to be emotionally in tune with yourself, know yourself well, the ability to weep as the strongest, hairiest caveman on the planet. I want you to be able to weep when you hold your infant son in your arms for the first time. That's a so-called feminine trait: nurturing, emotional availability, creativity, the ability to integrate ideas in a flow way that can lead to brilliance. These are incredibly powerful qualities for any masculine so-called male to have, as well as masculine qualities. Masculine qualities, I'm teaching to people who might not have heard this teaching as well, Nikki. I know a lot of your people are adept at it. Things like leadership, decisiveness, caretaking, taking care of business and people, being strong in your ethics, keeping your word, not being a pushover. These are great qualities. What I'm a little leery of with some of the masculine feminine polarity is it gets idiotically oversimplified to we want a caveman and some wilting flower female, and they'll want to fuck. Excuse the language, but I think
Right.
you're okay.
I don't think that's what they're talking about. So Buddy was talking about like when he was on the show, he was talking about his own marriage,
Yeah,
where
yeah,
8 years in, his wife would have perfunctory sex
yeah, yeah,
before she was like humping his brains out whenever every
yeah.
chance she got, right? And then 10 years in, she was like, I want a divorce. And he's like, where's this coming from? Why you want a divorce? I'm not cheating on you. I'm making money for the household. I'm taking the trash out. Why you want to leave? Why haven't you been having sex with me? And then he finds out later that she was having an affair with the gardener or whatever, right?
Yeah.
that sort of thing. And then this is when he said, well, I stopped being that guy, not, caveman, He-Man guy, but that decisive, leaderly, like the dude who showed up like he was exciting versus the dude who shows up like he's Homer Simpson,
Yeah. And I agree with that, but I did need to make the point, because I've heard masculine and feminine taught in some really BS ways, that it's not about caveman and wilting flower. Like masculine is only in the male body and feminine in the female body, and that's what's going to make you want to fuck each other. What your friend and colleague there was saying is much more in alignment with what I would agree with. And I teach it similarly and differently. But the showing up the way you used to show up when you were wooing someone, hell yeah, for the rest of your life.
Right.
I have a model to teach relationship, which I call the 3 keys to passion triangle. You need all 3 sides strong. And the first one, we're not going to talk a lot about today, but it's the core, which is you got to learn to communicate well and deeply. You got to learn how to handle conflict. Doesn't matter if you fight and raise your voices and you're a very passionate, fiery couple. It's how you fight that matters. Is it verbally abusive? Is it punitive? Are you able to repair from it? Are you able to come back into alignment? All that negotiating, profound relationship stuff needs to be worked on. This isn't a linear model. It's a triangle. They all 3 can be worked on at different times. You don't need to conquer one to move to the next one.
Right.
The 2 we're talking about, I call thrill and sensuality. So I call it intimacy, but I don't mean sexual intimacy. I mean emotional, psychological communication intimacy. Yeah, I know you've got my back. I've got yours. That's the first chunk. We're probably not going to talk much about anymore on this particular episode. But thrill and sensuality is how I choose to break down part of what your friend had a 9-year into his marriage awakening around, which is it used to be thrilling when we were dating. We look at the effort we put in. When you were wooing your lady, who I've met and who's fabulous, well played, you wooed. There was intensity, there was focus. Yeah, and what did you plan? Tell me about her first couple dates or first things you did to impress her, to get her interested, to let her know you thought she was all that. What did you do?
So the first thing I did to let her know that I was into her was I wrote her a poem and I read it to her. And she wow, no one's ever written a poem for me before. But she also said, well, I'm kind of like getting out of a relationship. I don't know, blah, blah, blah. Don't put too much effort into me. And I'm like, fuck that, man. I told her, I said, man, I'm winning your heart. And I said, you're going to try to resist me, but you're going to fail because I'm going to show up in a way that you can't. And I had Owen Williams coaching me, and he was telling me what, how to show up and how to be. So I wrote her a love poem a day for 30 days and I sent him to her, right? I came on strong, but, not like an asshole. And 30 days of love poems every day for a girl who's never received a love poem. And, she was breaking up from some dude who was being an ass. It worked. And it was hot. It was exciting and all that. And, but 8 years in, we settle into a routine too. Her mom gets sick, right? Her mom gets sick and she moves in and, noble thing to do, but also not super sexy, right? Like being a caregiver is not super sexy and it kills things off. So that's the sort of thing that, I experienced. And one of the things that there was a fellow that she and I go see here in Toronto. He's supercalifragilistic and all that. And he was sitting with us one day and he looked at me and he said, look, you're sitting here going, I need you to do this, this, this to your woman. And your woman's saying to you, I need you to do this, this, this to you. She said, both you guys are entitled and that's going to kill your relationship. When are you going to stop that shit? Or are you going to let your relationship die? Because you're either going to not be entitled and have your relationship succeed, or you're going to be entitled and go, I deserve this, and your relationship's going to fail. So we both kind of had to take a deep breath and make a commitment and say, we're going to give up the entitlement piece. And then he looked at me and he said, look, you're a man and you have a list of all the things you're not happy about your woman. She said, you're a man. Men don't get to keep lists. She gets to keep a list, right? Yeah. You don't get to keep a list. So you give that shit up. And I'm like, oh, yeah, all right. And then he looked at her and he said to her, said, sweetheart, you're coming to him with all your emotional problems and angst, and he's not equipped to deal with it. He's a man. He can give you 15 minutes and then he's done. His brain cannot take those in. You need to go talk to girls. You need to go talk to girls and bring it out because they love this. Hearing you ramble on for an hour and a half is something one of your girlfriends loves. Your man after 15 minutes is like, please get me out of here. I can't take this for another second, right? And
yeah, I don't entirely agree, but there's some great advice.
In my case, it's 100% true. And he said to her, listen, if you're doing it every single day, that 15 minutes drops to 10. And then she looked and she goes, yeah, you're right. He does after a while go, what's the point of all this? And she said, you're right. And he asked her, do you have any women friends that you go talk to? And she said, I don't. And I'm like, I've been telling you to go get some girlfriends and go out with them and have shits and giggles forever. I mean, that would make your life 1,000% better. You got to have some female friends that you can trust and be girly with, do the things that women do. And when he said all this to both of us, like, I got to tell you, it was not an easy thing for me to hear any of it. I did not before this session. I'm like, I'm right. She's wrong. She's obviously, and I don't have to do anything. At the end of the meeting, I'm like, okay, I'm being a dick. Stop. And she, to her credit, she did the same. And she came to me and she started chatting, going on and on. I'm sitting there, I'm listening. 25 minutes in, she goes, you know what? I can see you've had enough. I'm going to call one of my girlfriends for the rest of it. And God bless her. It worked. And then when she was being her way that drove me crazy before, I bit my tongue. I didn't say anything. I'm like, okay. And you know what, Cheryl? At the end of that night, we had the best sex we've had in 3 freaking years.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. The thing I'm going to pull my PhD in sex therapy card on is it is often oversimplified and it doesn't apply to every couple. However, learning each other, I'd like to move away from the masculine and feminine language because I think it obscures the deeper work. It's great. It should be a part of the deep work in my biased opinion. But what if, I know plenty of guys, and they're not all sensitive new age guys who are like wimps, who are actually really emotionally available to have deep conversations. That actually is something that is good for them and they don't mind it and it works for them. You just want to stay away from one size fits all. But if we're talking about great sex,
I don't mean deep conversations. I mean Teresa coming on and saying, honey, I need to talk to you, and the conversation meanders through 18 points. You know what I'm talking about?
No, fair. You're allowed to have your preferences. I know other guys.
Listen, if she's dealing with, I don't know, my mom's sick, which has happened. My mom broke her hip. I need to talk to you. That's different. That's different than I need my daily dump on. I need my daily dump. Go talk to Cheryl. Sweetie, Cheryl, if she has an hour, she'll love it.
There you go. So we're talking about, and this is all super related, like why does the spark, the passion, the easy aspect for a lot of us, not for every new couple, but for a lot of us, it was pretty easy to have some great sex when we were beginning. There may have been some awkwardness as we got to know each other and how to please each other, and found out somebody had a fantasy we weren't that keen on, and found out there was one we were both keen on. But I mean, it was a lot easier. We were sexually motivated. We had what's called strong, spontaneous sexual desire. And as the name implies, that means it's pretty easy for me to be turned on by you. I'm pretty easily in the mood. My hubby and I met, I was 49, he was 48. And we met on a blind date I didn't want to go on. I was only going on it because I was writing an article about dating services. And so I was just kind of sampling the wares and then going to continue being single and happy. And the rest is history. You've met my man. And we'd have sex twice a day when we were together. And we were, 48 and 49. We weren't old, but we weren't like 20. And it was so hot. And there was so much spontaneous desire, meaning if he was living an hour away and he worked some shift work, so he'd sometimes be leaving my house at 10, 11 at night to go to work and then sleep at his place the next day. Details don't matter. The point is we'd already made love at least once that day, and we'd be kissing goodbye at the door and our tongues would touch and we'd be turned on and we'd have sex again. That's spontaneous desire, whether it's to a high level or just a medium level where it's not that hard to get turned on. What's arguably deeply sad for most of us is that level of desire wanes over time. For some people, it stays pretty strong for quite a lot of years. For others, it starts to wane after 6 to 18 months. I love how you said around 8 years in to your own relationship, or X years into your own relationship, you guys weren't very happy and the sex wasn't happening much, or it wasn't great and it felt perfunctory. And you got some incredible help to start shifting some of your patterns and some of your energy, in this case, around some differences of what fills you up and drains you. And you each were challenged by this clever person you were working with to take responsibility for your part in the problem, which we know because we're now big ass grown-ups. But so often, and it sounds like what your coach or your therapist there pointed out was, you both got a list of what the other person needs to do differently.
Yeah.
Okay, because some of that's probably valid complaints that should be worked on in a bit. But the way I teach a similar thing is, how are you showing up? Are you being a great partner? And then I play the dirty little card. I say, would you date you as you are acting right now? Ouch. It's like, oh, let's see, I'm
Most
complaining a
people
lot.
probably not want to see that. Yeah.
Oh, like I work all the time. I prioritize the kids over you. And then I complain we're not having sex. I probably wouldn't want to date me. And that's effectively in different language what your skilled person did with you and your sweetheart is, you both got a list of how you want the other person to change. Who are you being? What are you expecting that's realistic that your partner needs to freaking step up and do better at? What are you wanting or expecting that's really your stuff to work with, or call a friend, or not necessarily rely or expect your partner to fill you up? Nobody can make us happy. Tattoo that on your arm, everybody listening. Nobody can make us happy in the long term. That's the fictional soulmate. Kill the fucking soulmate and save your relationship. I know we don't believe that. I don't think so. If you do, have at her. Good luck with that. But I don't think we mostly believe there's one perfect person on this planet for us. The soulmate myth comes from, and I always butcher whether it's Aristotle or Socrates, but it's one of those lovely Greek guys, that they created this thing saying that the soulmate, that we're born on this planet as half a soul. And somewhere on planet Earth, the other half is embodied in a different human. And if we're really, really, really lucky, out of what do we got, 3 billion people or something, we'll bump into the right one. Wow, I hate those odds.
Yeah, they
And
suck.
they're our soulmate, and it's just stupid. Yeah, kill the soulmate and save your relationship is one of my slogans, because even though we probably don't believe that, we have a subconscious ache that when things aren't going well, not the first sign of trouble, but when things aren't going well and we're pretty unhappy and we used to be so much better together, and now it's just marriage, relationship incorporated, and busyness, and there's no us, of course it starts to seep in that that person seems so happy with their mate, and why can't you be more like that? And this little doubt, even if we don't cognitively, intellectually believe it, creeps in that says, maybe we're not meant to be together. Again, meant to be together? Nobody's meant to be together. That's more like ethereal, chosen by the universe nonsense. We choose, for some good reasons and maybe sometimes some not particularly solid reasons, one person. And if it's going really well and we were pretty damn happy for X amount of time and now we're not happy, that's where I get really intrigued, Nikki. That's where I'm like, okay, what's changed? Why? What are you doing differently? What can we do differently now? Back to the model, all the communication, critical stuff, we'll leave that for now. And I said the other two sides, what I call the passion triangle, are thrill and sensuality. This is what I teach in my 3-month program. We work through all three sides with homework and live calls with me, and it's pretty intense, and it's really actually quite difficult. Thrill is what we've so beautifully talked about together here as friends and colleagues, like the love poem for 30 days. And I wanted to circle back on that because there's some unaware masculine men who would say, what a pussy, you wrote a love poem every day? They don't get it. It takes a man to be masculine and strong and directive and a conqueror the way you are, and in touch with emotion and wooing and romance and beauty. That package is very irresistible. And it worked. It worked for this woman who is out of your league, baby, the way I'm out of my husband's league, baby, but not really, because it was sincere. You weren't game playing those poems. It wasn't a manipulation to, I'll give her what she wants. You've got this massive heart inside of a very masculine directive energy. And when you can embody both of those, as you did through that beautiful story you shared with us here, Holy smokes, it is pretty irresistible. And it was because the masculine part was the classic masculine part was, oh no, I'm going to get through your defenses. I'm going to woo you, baby. It wasn't, hi, my name's Nikki. Here's a poem. Hi, it's Nikki. It's day 3. Here's my 3rd poem. Like it was joined, right? This, what I'm calling feminine in a beautiful way, emotionally aware, romantic, deep, beautiful flow combined with, you're not going to be able to resist me because I'm coming for you. I'm not going to be
That's what it
obnoxious.
was.
I'm not going to, bulldoze through your boundaries. But no, just no, I don't tend to quit. That's a beautiful example to me of what I want a masculine man to be. I want him to be strong and leader and broke no bullshit and keep his word and own his crap as you did in that session when you did not like being told that you were being a whiny baby. And it took a lot of courage and self-analysis to go, you know what, you're right. Damn it. I got to change some stuff, but also a heart. I've seen you talk about your sons. I've seen you talk about your woman and how you look at her. That to me is true masculine. Strong leader to the archetypes, right? You call your podcast and the beautiful group my husband's part of, the Sovereign Men's Group. Why did you choose the word sovereign? What does it mean to you?
Well, a sovereign man is a man who's self-sufficient. That doesn't mean he doesn't need anybody else, need and
Mm,
right? But he's self-sufficient, right? Like he can pay his bills. He's physically healthy enough that you don't have to like push him in a wheelchair to get him somewhere.
mm,
Um, he wants his woman, but he's not a needy, whiny little bitch. That sort of
mhm,
thing. Uh,
mhm,
like sovereignty to me is a man who's got his shit together and can do his things. Like it's there's a myth out there of the rugged individual, right? That they
mhm.
do everything on their own. I don't think that's actually
Right.
true. I think we all need people in air quotes to help us, guide us, move us forward.
Mm,
I think in 2025, the 21st century, we've got too many men that have been conditioned to be excuse makers. Well, I didn't have
mm,
breakfast. I didn't
mm,
sleep too much last night, rather
mm.
than, no, man, I'm here.
Yeah, step up and show up.
Step up. I pay my bills, right? If I ask a woman out and she says no, I'm not going to crumble and go
Yeah,
suck my thumb for 5 days. You know what I mean? I'm going to pick
yeah.
myself up and move on. So sovereignty is about self-sufficiency.
So that's really cool. I really like that description, and thank you. I wanted to get that. I'm going to briefly talk about 4 archetypes, and I'm going to go back to thrill. Thrill's the second side of the model, and it's what you were doing and did probably for months, if not a year or two, in your relationship with the beautiful person you're currently with, and I hope forever with, is you wooed, the thrill was there. You made effort. You did things. You planned dates. From the female side of it, we wear really nice underwear when we go on those dates, whether it's going to be seen or not, and we frickin' stand on our head to rearrange our calendars to see each other. How many of us are doing that in our long-term relationship? Are we flopping on the
Not too
couch
long.
tonight and watching Netflix, right? So people get a little irritable when a lover, a sex expert says, "Are you going on dates?" They're like, "I know we're supposed to go on dates." So lame. I'm like, "Is it really? Are you going on them? When did you surprise him or her? When did you, unplug and go for sushi and have the phones off and just talk about what you might do next year on your vacation? Not the kids, not the mortgage, not business, not finances. How often do you get away for a getaway? If the finances aren't robust, you can do getaways in your own hometown and come back and sleep at your own house. How hard are you trying back to would you date you the way you're being now? But I
Mm.
said I wanted to mention 4 archetypes. These are probably familiar to you. I don't know if they'll be to your whole audience, but there's one model of 4 male archetypes, which is the king, the sovereign. So we'll call it sovereign. The sovereign, the warrior, the magician, and the lover.
Yep.
Me, that's a well-rounded man. And it's kind of what we're talking about the more feminine strengths of being a lover, being able to love, to feel, to have emotions. And magician is like a play. We could call it a spiritual. It doesn't all have to be intellectual and provable to be important. So when we female or male-bodied people, we just sovereign's great because it's neither king nor queen. It can be for female or male, warrior, king or queen. I'm a warrior when I need to be. But to have our lover and our magician strong is the one addition I would make to the way sometimes masculine polarity is, in my view, incorrectly taught. It's taught well by some and not by others. Got to have a great relationship in terms of skill, communication, dealing with this tough stuff, the ailing mother, needing to move houses, all of that. Thrill is this, come on already. Reboot what you're doing. In my program, I challenge them each week to what I call Friday night date night. Doesn't have to be on Friday. That happens to be when me and my hubby do ours. And I get them to like run competitions with the other couples of like who came up with a cool idea, who had the best date for $0, just to get them in the habit of wooing and dating again. But the third side is what I call sensuality, and that's the sexual aspect. That's the non-sexual touch. Do you cuddle? Do you hold hands? When we drive somewhere, whoever of us is driving, the other one usually has their hand on the driver's knee or on the back of their neck. We like to touch. We like to be in contact, as well as sexual eroticism and all the glories of the sexual life. Are you good at hugging? Are you good at cuddling? Are you good at giving each other a shoulder rub while you're watching said Netflix show? And again, people might go, oh, I have to give her a foot rub. I have to give her a neck rub. It's like, you don't have to do anything. But when you were really into her, you probably would have been happy to have her sit at your feet while you watched a movie and just rub her shoulders, play with her hair. You were more showing up. You were more in tune. Why does sex wane? Because of life, because of being together a long time, because of not making an effort, because of becoming a lazy lover. What I called nipple, crotch, goodnight. Because of our own hangups, male and female people can bring into the sexuality based on our past and our religion and any trauma, capital T or small t. Sexuality is a really multifaceted, fraught thing. This couple I was working with yesterday, I mentioned briefly, late 40s, attractive, love each other a lot, travel, pretty great life, both entrepreneurs, haven't made love in almost 2 years. It turned out when they were younger, they met in their early mid-20s. She was sort of more of a passionate, bit more of a slightly more experienced, slightly more bold in her sexuality than he was. He wasn't super experienced, and he wasn't super great at helping her come. He wasn't super great at his skills. He was teachable, but he didn't really know what to do. And she got a little bit frustrated and didn't find the sex with him very exciting. So they had sex off and on for the next decade or 15 years. And now she said, I'm going to have more pleasure when I masturbate than being with him. And she loves this guy, and she wasn't putting him down or being contemptuous. She was being very gentle with it. And he said, Cheryl, I've this last year been reading some books on how to be a great lover and how to show up more in the bedroom. But they're at this impasse, which I was helping them with yesterday to create a plan from impasse to progress, where, of course, they're afraid to give it a try because there's 2 years of built up hurt and insecurity and a bit of frustration. Again, they're not unkind about it. They don't fight nasty about it. But this poor fella, he's going to show up thinking, I got to be a dynamo, which isn't really what she's asking for, but he's obviously not feeling confident. And if he comes in with false bravado, it's not going to work very well either. No. So I have to help them take some smaller steps toward basically having, I don't care if it's a mediocre sexual encounter, but they kind of get over the myth of, oh God, we haven't made love in 2 years. So it's got to be epic, or it's got to be great, or what if it goes badly? And I'm like, if the dick doesn't work, then you use oral sex. If you're trying and one of you gets up in your head and anxious and it's weird, you stop for a bit and you keep suckling and whatever. You basically, it's not very romantic, but it's good advice. You get through it. You have a sexual encounter. Then we can now start saying, okay, we had sex. Now let's look at how we can work with the blocks that are in the way. Let's look how we can work with our mindset. Let's look how we can work at, there's a workbook they'll be working through from one of the things I do in the program, which is, it starts with what turns me on and what turns me off, because that changes as different phases and ages, it right down to, do I have fantasies I'd like to try? Do I have fantasies I'd never actually want to act out, but I'd enjoy to tell you what they are? For some people, that's a no-go zone. For others, it can become very exciting. And for others, for the first time, they might share a fantasy they've never shared. And I often am reasonably vanilla, I'm a naughty schoolgirl and I go to the principal's office. It's not like it's always the most creative thing in the world, but it's sexy and it's titillating and it's fun. And sometimes the partner receives it with real grace. I say, that's really hot. We don't necessarily have to act it out, although we might. But even just you whispering that to me while we're making love, telling me, what the principal's telling you to do, how can we open up our repressed selves? How can we open up our repressed selves? Because, Nikki, here we are in North America. And there's kind of this belief, it seems, that we're sexually liberated. Oh my God. Can't even teach sex education properly in schools. It's banned in a bunch of places right now in North America. And if you do get sex ed, it's how not to get pregnant or an STD. It's not about what's a clitoris, what's the female orgasm like, what is consent, what is joy, what is pleasure, right? And if sexually liberated means there's a lot of free porn, then we're screwed, but not the good way. Because we're not sexually liberated. Most couples aren't having conversations about what they want and don't want, and they don't know how. So that's where I take them through doing worksheets on their own, where they, first of all, learn what turns me on and off these days. What would I like to try and not try? Right down to if we're to start making love again or more often or improve the quality of our sex or go into some wild, fun, taboo sex, wherever you are, your next benchmark, what will that look like? Down to the minutia. Because this spontaneous desire isn't happening much. When's a good day of the week for us to have sex? Do we prefer morning, afternoon, and evening? Do we have different preferences? Like to plan for it, which brings us to, I wasn't teasing. I said there was two types of sexual desire that I wanted to share today. The first is spontaneous. Boy, I missed that one. It was easy and fun. It shows up on occasion, but not that often. The second type of desire is what's called responsive desire. And people groan and don't like this, but facts are facts. Responsive desire is where you're not actually turned on. You're not in a hot and heavy mind state or necessarily body state, but you choose to move toward a sexual encounter, a making love encounter, because you know it's important, you know it'll feel good, and it matters to you. If you're waiting around till one or both of you are horny and want to have sex, it might be a long time. So you make sex sacred again. You create time for it. You plan it out. And I know this is kind of heavy lifting. It is. But if you're going to move from little or no or lousy or mediocre sex to more or better or great sex, it's hard to have a quick hack. It's hard to have a bing, bing. Your mind, your bodies, your lives are all different. And suddenly you're super hot and horny for each other. So there needs to be some methodical work towards a new type of sexuality together. And it's an odd thing to say, Nikki, but it's like we need to create the methodical circumstances within which some spontaneity can arise. If there was an easy prescription, I'd give it. If there was a bottled prescription, I'd promote it and make $1 billion off it. What it is when we've got kids, we've got grandkids, we've got bills, we've got worries, we're sandwich generation, we've got ailing parents. In all that, how do we create space to be sacred together? Whether that's a gentle, emotional, soul-shaking love-making that brings us almost to tears, whether it's a hot and dirty quickie right before we run out the door, whether it's anything in between, but that we prioritize our sexual life. We make it important again. And it is more difficult to feel the kind of excitement for someone I've been with for a long time than it would be to feel it with a new person. And we need to accept that and say, what are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it?
Well, it's been a very interesting conversation. So maybe this makes me a weirdo, but I still find Teresa as hot as I did when I first met her. Drop of a hat, anytime, any place, anywhere. She doesn't always feel the same way, quite candidly, for many of the reasons you said. But there are times and there are ways for us to help her along. Menopause has not been her biggest ally in this respect.
Yeah.
No question. And nor has needing to put so much time into taking care of her ailing mom been her biggest ally. But I don't know. I think she's the hottest thing walking, man.
That's beautiful. Let's keep it that way.
Whenever I look at her, I want to jump her bones. I mean, walk in the room like, yeah, get naked. That's just get naked, and then we'll talk later.
Take the program. My gift to the two of you. Join me in October. You're going to learn some really useful stuff to make you better people, a better couple, and to guide you. Although you're both pretty frank and open and psychologically aware by a long shot, it'll still guide you to have some conversations you might not have thought of having in exactly that way. That might lead to some more knowledge and more play, and even deepening that commitment and respect, more joy, more lightness.
Joy and
Yeah.
lightness and better sex are always good things to have. Thank you so much. That's very, very wonderful and kind of you. Um, Cheryl, it's been great to have you here. What's the website we want to send people to?
DrCherylFraser.com. And just a month ago, I created for the first time a free course people can sign up for. And it's 5 video lessons. You get one every couple days, about 10 minutes long, and a little worksheet to give people a deeper dive into this 3 sides of relationship. They can do a quiz. Where are you strong? Where are you weak? What do you need to work on? It's a great way to get a jump start here and now. You can do it with your partner for sure. And then those that like the style and like what I do, the big thing coming up here in about a month or so here, fall 2025, is the once a year I teach my 3-month journey, and I teach it live. There's a curriculum that's pre-recorded videos, but it's a great way to really take a deep dive. I only take 100 couples a year, and it sounds like you and Teresa might be one of them. My gift to my friends.
So, and it's all at drcherylfraser.com.
Yep, it's all there. And I have a podcast you can look up there called Sex, Love, and Elephants. Got over 200 episodes there where I basically talk about relationships.
Love and elephants. How cool a name is that?
Elephants in this context refers to spiritual awakening. The elephant within you that has all the wisdom already.
That's beautiful. Love it. Thank you, Cheryl. That's a wrap.
Keep up the great work.
Thank you for listening to the Sovereign Man Podcast. If you're ready to take charge of your life and become the man you've always wanted to be, we invite you to join the movement at sovereignman.ca.